video, we're going to be talking about dividend investing versus selling options. And if you guys go on to YouTube and type in dividends, you will see so many videos from like Andrei Jikh and let's see, you got Dividend Data. There's a bunch of these guys promoting dividends, and it's obvious why. Like, it's pretty passive income. It's easy to get into. You just buy and hold, collect your dividends, and then if you're doing it dividend growth, obviously you can pick and choose your companies that might have lower yields now, but you build up those positions over time. Definitely by retirement you can have a large portfolio, and that is kind of the whole idea behind dividend investing. And it makes sense. Like, passive income, you can for sure get some good passive income, and it snowballs, as you guys have seen in most of these videos. So it is very attractive, and obviously it's super easy to get into. You're not making much money at the beginning when your account's small, but it does grow rather quickly over time, and if you stay consistent with it. So there is quite a few large draws. The main decision maker between whether you're going to be a dividend investor or an option seller, and you don't have to be one or the other, you combine them, but it basically comes down to what your goals are. Are you trying to store value? Are you trying to generate income and bolster returns? What does your investing timeline look like? Are you available to place trades, or do you need it to be super, super passive? Or is it something else? So before you decide one or the other, make sure you know what your goals are and what you have them in mind. And I'm guessing, based on my subscribers, generate income, whether it's to live off of or just to increase their overall returns. So that is who I'm going to be kind of speaking to. But it definitely still applies to people who are retired and trying to generate income or something else. So this is basically just to open your eyes. And before I jump into the actual differences, I do want to highlight this point. Both require for you to like the underlying stock. Okay, you have to want to own it. You're not going to buy a dividend stock just because of its yield, or you shouldn't, because if the stock falls by 50% and has a 10% dividend yield, you're obviously still losing money. Okay, so you should like the underlying, and that kind of leads into the second point. You're going to need neutral to positive price action. They both can fall a little bit, but and same thing with option selling. If you sell a cash secured put, collect a couple $100, but the stock drops $5 per share, and you don't actually want to own the underlying, then you're going to be worse off. Okay, so they both require this, so that is not going to be a difference, but I just wanted to highlight that real quick. Okay, so let's look at these. I mentioned this a little bit before, but a big positive to dividends is that it is super passive. So if you are a dividend investor, you can simply just buy and hold, add to your position over time, and just collect your dividends. Okay, it's as easy as it gets. It's as passive. It's very simple to understand and has a very low barrier to entry. Whereas on options, slightly more complex. It can still be super easy. You could still sell once a week or once a month or once a quarter. So you can basically sell as frequently as you want or as infrequently as you want. And obviously they're going to be slightly more complex. There's a bit of an education barrier. There's something you need to learn about it in order to do these properly. But like what I do, I basically only sell cash secured puts. I don't really bother with iron condors or butterflies or strangles or straddles or anything more complex, not even really credit spreads. Really only selling cash secured puts and covered calls. And these require such a small amount of education to actually understand them. So yes, they're more complex, but very slightly. If you're willing to take the time and learn a little bit about these, it can pay off massively. And if I'm going to talk about this low barrier to entry, basically any investment that has a low barrier to entry, there's going to be more players, which will drive returns down. If there's a market that's really easy to get into versus one that's a little bit harder to get into, the returns in the one that it's harder to get into, harder to understand, can be expected to be a little bit higher. Okay, there's just going to be less players. The ROI is going to be a little bit better. So that is a backdrop to this conversation. Yes, selling options more complex, slightly in the case of just selling cash secured puts and covered calls, which is what I do. But because of that, the ROIs should be higher. Okay, I'll say should be because it's not a guarantee, but they should be, all things being equal. Okay, another difference, we got tax rates. So dividends, I believe they're 0, 10, 15, 20%. Don't quote me on that for the dividend tax rates. Obviously, those are much lower, whereas if you're selling options, you can be taxed at that short-term capital gains tax, which is just your regular, ordinary income. So yes, your taxes are going to be much higher, but your returns are going to be much higher. I'd rather make $100,000 and get taxed at 30% than make $50,000 and get taxed at 25%. Okay, you're going to end up with more money. And then we'll talk about this one. So is there lower risk in dividends versus selling options? I would argue there is not, but there's definitely probably more stress in selling options than dividends. Like I said earlier, this is super passive. You can just buy and hold. You pick a stock that you like, you buy and hold, add to it over time. Super low stress. Whereas selling options, there's quite a bit of price fluctuation. Stuff moves around. You don't have to manage these trades at all if you're doing it properly, if you do it like I do it. And then over time, they're just less and less stressful, okay? So the more you trade options, the less stressful they become. But still, in both of these cases, let's just say AT&T. So if you're going to buy 100 shares of AT&T, you're going to risk $2,800. AT&T could go to $0. It's not likely, but it could, okay? So you're risking $2,800. And if you sell the $28 strike or $27.50 strike or something like that, if you're selling a cash secured put, you're still putting up $2,800 or $2,750 minus the premium collected, okay? So you're still risking your max loss is going to be about the same. It's going to be slightly less selling options because you collect that premium. So I would argue that there's not actually a higher risk, but there will be more volatility, and for almost everybody, there's going to be more stress involved. And then obviously dividends are a little bit more of a store of value. So even though I recommend and I'm strongly for selling options, I still have quite a bit of my money in ETFs and stocks just because of the long run average. It's a little bit more consistent and stable, so I see that as a store of value, so that's a big positive for dividends. Whereas selling options, I see them as a little bit more of a money engine, okay? So you're creating quite a bit higher returns, generating income, that sort of thing. And we're going to get into that in my example right now. Okay, so this is my option selling sheet. You can see this is on my premium portfolio tracker. Again, that's in my Patreon. If you guys want to join, just $5 there. But these are all of the options that I sold in June. So you can see all of these are cash secured puts or covered calls. You can see right here, if we highlight this, I collected $530 in premium in the month of June. 11 positions. Okay, $530 collected in the month of June. $530 from selling options. And with all of these, I used a maximum, an absolute maximum of $6,000 in collateral. Okay? So 530 divided by 6,000, this is going to give me my percent return. So I earned 8.83% on my money selling options in the month of June, in 1 month. So if I annualize this rate, that is a 106% return per year, okay? June was a pretty good month for me, but again, 11 option sales. This can be as frequent or as infrequent as you want. You can see I'm selling a lot of weeklies, but usually 2 to 3 weeks out, okay? So you don't even have to be this active. But on $6,000, I made $530, okay? 8.83% for the month, 106% annualized return. That is huge. Okay, so that's the returns from selling options. If I was investing in dividends, one of my favorite ETFs is the Schwab US Dividend Equity ETF. It's a very solid ETF. It is very popular among dividend investors. 2.89% annualized yield. Okay, 2.89%. You guys can see where I'm going with this. If I had that same $6,000, let's do equals this. Divide it by 12 to get a monthly rate, 0.24%, and we'll multiply that times this $6,000. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe if you want to see more like it. I could have collected $14.45 in dividends in the month of June with that same $6,000. I think that's pretty much a no-brainer. Okay, so if you can understand even basic option selling, all I'm doing is selling cash secured puts and covered calls. So easy. If I were to make $530 in the month of June with a 0.24% return, I would need an account balance of $220,000. I would need $220,000 to make $530 in 1 month in the Schwab ETF here. even if you have a dividend yield of double that. Okay, so let's say instead of 0.24, you're getting 0.48%. Okay, so instead of 0.24%, you're getting 0.48%. So let's do the same thing. $530 divided by this yield, you would need $110,000. So if you have a dividend portfolio that is yielding 5.8% a year, which would be huge, you would still need $110,000 in your account to make the same amount of money that I made in 1 month. Okay, let's compare it to only covered calls. I sell these so far out of the money, like these don't even have a chance of getting touched, but it's literally just to add a little bit of extra premium. And because it's so easy, it's just right there. I had an ROI in the month of June of 5.74%. Okay, so if I annualize that, that is a 68% return per year just by selling, look at these, 3 covered calls on positions that I own anyway. I'm not doing anything extra. I'm not going out of my way to own 3D Systems or Dropbox. I own these companies anyway. I'm just selling way out of the money covered calls on these and collecting the premium that's offered, okay? 5.74% for the month. 68, almost 69 nice percent return annualized. That is huge. If you are not selling options, you are leaving so much money on the table. Like, you guys just saw the numbers. Even with just selling covered calls, the returns are so good. They're so attractive. And does this look overly complex? I'm selling way out of the money covered calls. I sold 3 different times in an entire month. Okay, I think you guys can find the time to do that. And I think this is well worth it. You make $287 on a $5,000 investment every single month. Okay, it is not that hard. It's not that complicated. It is well worth your time. So yeah, when you compare dividend investing to selling options, you'll see why I do not bother at all thinking about dividends. If a company pays a dividend, great, I'll collect it. But that is not going to be a make or break reason for me to go out and invest. If I want to collect a dividend on a company, I'll just sell out of the money calls on it, make 1 to 2% every single month. So look at this. Dropbox doesn't pay a dividend, so I sell out of the money covered calls, and that's my dividend. Okay, so I sold the $32 strike. I think Dropbox is trading for $26 a share at this point. I sold it for a little over a month out. You can see I closed it just over a month out. I collected $42, which is a 1.32% ROI for a month. Okay, so a monthly dividend of 1.32%, annualized return 15.5%. I'm going to own Dropbox anyway, and if I do this once a month, I just increased my return by 15.5% per year. Okay, learn how to sell options. It is huge. You will not worry about dividends ever again. Okay, so there's the video, dividend investing versus selling options. Very passionate about it, obviously. If you want to learn and talk to other people who are doing this, who are selling options daily, weekly, monthly to increase their returns and generate income, hop into the Patreon. I think it is going to be pretty big. I'm going to be very active in there. I'll be answering a ton of questions from people, and it's just going to be a great community of, like I put it here, it's going to be a great community of like-minded individuals. Super excited to see where this goes, and then build out that Discord and other stuff like that. So I hope you guys appreciated the content. Let me know down below if you have any questions, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.